Hi everybody, it's Christy, your digital technology librarian, and I am here with you for yet another Film Rec Friday. Um, it is actually the very last week of our summer reading program 2020, and I just thought, why don't we tie the two things together? So this week we are going to focus in on films and documentaries that are all themed around fairy tales and folklore. So you're about to get a set of recs that may be a little bit familiar to you in theme, but that all have really, really interesting spins and adaptations on them. So, like every single week, all of our recommendations come from our three video services, which are CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. So without any further ado, let's get to those recs. So our first two recommendations both come from our CleveNet Overdrive service. And the first one, well, I've absolutely recommended it in the past, very briefly, but I couldn't really do a rundown of fairy tale and folklore based films and not mention my favorite fractured fairy tale, Into the Woods. So, for those who are not at all familiar with the storyline of Into the Woods, it combines like several fairy tales, say like The Baker's Wife and Rapunzel and Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, Little Red Riding Hood, and it combines them into this one interconnected tale. All of the characters know each other. It's all sort of one fairy tale universe. So, anyway, this particular Into the Woods is actually a filmed adaptation of the original Broadway cast. So, you don't get, say, like James Corden hamming it up. You don't get Meryl Streep kind of doing her rappy thing. You definitely don't get like a watered down version of the Big Bad Wolf. Instead, you get like this really intense, very, very dark story with incredible music by Stephen Sondheim, most of which was intact for the filmed adaptation that they did recently, um, as well as probably one of the best Bernadette Peters performances of her career. Um, she plays the witch, which was the Meryl Streep role in the film in the recent Disney adaptation. But it's just so much more intense, and there's so much more mercenary nature to the character. It's a lot creepier than the Disney version. And I think that's really what I love about it. It leans so heavily into sort of those grim fairy tale roots. It absolutely doesn't lighten things up the way that the Disneyfied version does. And, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Um, I liked the Disney version as well, but it's definitely not my preferred version of the Into the Woods story. Um, so if you're looking for something lighter, this is definitely not going to be for you. Um, like I was saying, along with that dark, grim tone, when there are the moments of levity, that disparity in tone really strikes a chord as well. So it's, as mentioned, got phenomenal music. The performances, since it's from the original Broadway cast, you know that these are really, really seasoned performers, and they are all across the board extraordinarily solid. So it's perfect for those people who maybe like a little bit more suffering in the trials and tribulations of their characters prior to any sort of happily ever after. So if you like fairy tales with a bit of a darker, grimish edge, definitely check out the Into the Woods that's available on Overdrive. I believe it's also available on Hoopla if you prefer to use the Hoopla service. But yes, definitely check out Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods. You won't be sorry. It's excellent. My second recommendation from CleveNet's Overdrive comes from, I think, a storyline that we're all at least a little bit familiar with. I know when I was little, I saw the Disney adaptation of it, which I loved and still love today. There are examples of these characters throughout all kinds of literature, even in, say, blockbuster hits like Game of Thrones. Where fair young maiden falls in love with unattractive, vicious kind of characters. I am, of course, talking about the Beauty and the Beast trope. Um, and the film I want to recommend is the 2014 French film adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, uh, which is totally appropriate because the original fairy tale is a French fairy tale. Uh, Not to say that that makes it more authentic or anything, but it just fits very well. This particular adaptation just has this very French feel to it, and it works so marvelously well with the whole film. Anyway, it's an adaptation that I absolutely love. Um, I only saw it like first saw it a couple years ago when I was just skimming through Netflix. It was on there, and I was like, "Oh, I like these kinds of movies. Let me try it," and I absolutely adored it. Um, I am a huge fan of the director, Christophe Gans, who made another folklore based film years ago, Brotherhood of the Wolf. He has a really, really fantastic eye for pacing. He does really great dialogue scenes. He's just a great, great director. Um, and I also love the two leads. Léa Seydoux, she plays Belle, and Vincent Cassel plays Beast. And these two are just amazing actors in pretty much anything I've seen them do. But they're also really, really wonderful in this particular film as well. You know, these kinds of roles can easily get bland or way too overdone and over the top, but they sort of have this perfect balance of fairy tale charm with realism in their performances, and I think they do a phenomenal job. Um, what I actually love most about this film, though, is besides the acting, the production design. So it is a period piece, but beyond just having like really beautiful costumes and things like that, the whole mood of the film is marvelous. Like the scenes where you're in brightly lit forests, it actually feels like you're in this magical fairy tale. The colors are so lush and so vivid and so they sort of saturate every scene. But then the scenes where you're dealing with like a dark, creepy castle, like they are super dark and like almost velvety feeling when you look at them. It's difficult to put my finger on exactly how to describe it, but it just feels very lush. The whole filming process feels very lush to me. Um, so it's just really a delightful adaptation. And if you are a fantasy fan at all, I highly recommend this one. It's just whether or not you're into fairy tales, this has such a good fantasy vibe to it all the way through. From performance to look to direction, please do give the 2014 French adaptation of Beauty and the Beast a try. It's absolutely worth it, and I hope you'll give it a shot. Now, moving on to Hoopla recommendations. If you're looking for charm, pretty people, and a thoroughly enjoyable, though not overly predictable, happily ever after, you absolutely 100% need to check out the movie Penelope. Penelope is kind of a contemporary gender reversal version of Beauty and the Beast. Um, I mentioned I'm already a fan of the storyline and trope, but in this, the Beast happens to be a rather sweet, isolated, naive heiress named Penelope. She's quite normal for the most part, except, you know, her nose happens to be in the shape of a pig snout. And I don't mean she has like a piggy nose. I know that people have described people like that in literature for ages, but no, she actually has a pig snout for a nose. And so it stems in rather, and it's illustrated in this rather comic way, that her family generations back had gravely insulted a witch and her daughter, and so was cursed. Um, and the curse didn't show up until Penelope's generation, because it was only going to affect a young woman born to that family, and there'd always been men born. So she's the first one for whom the curse has befallen, and her parents have no idea what to do. Um, so they do believe, however, that the way to break the curse is for someone to fall in love with her despite her affliction. So enter Max Campion, a young man that they think could manage to save the family. There's so much wrong with her parents, who are played with vivid color by two fantastic actors. But in any case, Max Campion is not really everything that he seems. Not everything is on the up and up with him. So I wouldn't think that a contemporary film would work with this particular kind of trope, being so blatant. It's one thing for one of the characters to not be attractive in a particular way, but for her to have an actual pig snout was very interesting. But it absolutely does. It's really, truly kind of a perfect fairy tale movie. It's beautifully shot. Like, the colors are lovely. It has a very rich fairy tale feel to the whole thing. And while on the surface level it might be a little bit twee, that actually adds to the whole vibe of the film. It makes sense for it to be a little too cutesy in places. And it sort of elevates the mood. It makes it more of a real fairy tale, if you will. It's just quite an overall wonderful movie, and I've seen it more than once at this point, and it always makes me smile. And it also just has really, like I mentioned before, fantastic performances. Your two leads are played by Christina Ricci and James McAvoy. Beautiful people, solid performers. But it's all of your secondary characters that really bring everything to life. The mother and father are played by Richard E. Grant and Catherine O'Hara. Catherine O'Hara, no one plays a fantastically hysterical woman the way that Catherine O'Hara does, and she's hilarious, and you sort of want to shake her, but you like her at the same time. It's weird how she's able to do that. You also have this sort of smarmy but with a heart of gold reporter played by Peter Dinklage, and Dinklage is always extraordinary in whatever he does, but he brings that sort of flair to even like a silly, fluffy film like this. But really, like I said, it's those colorful extra performances that really make this movie shine so much. I can't recommend it enough. I love it. I will probably watch it again at some point this weekend, really. So please do check out Penelope. It's a great fairy tale. You'll love it. My other recommendation from Hoopla. I know that it's no longer July, but if you're still hankering for a Christmas in July style Hallmark film, you might want to give A Snow White Christmas a try. It is guaranteed to give you all the warm, fuzzy feelings that your standard Hallmark holiday movie would. It's a contemporary, very Hallmark-esque movie. It's a twist, obviously, on Snow White, where a young, wealthy business owner runs into some serious issues with her vicious stepmother, who wants to push her out of the family fortune. And along the way, she meets these 7 friends, and not one but 2 princes. It's light and it's fluffy, and she's got these trials and tribulations that she has to face down. It's not Shakespeare. It's not like gonna win any Oscars, but it absolutely serves its purpose. It is romantic, and it will make you smile, and it's fluffy and light. And sometimes you're just in a mood for movies like that. And it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's very cute and it's a very sweet adaptation. If you're looking for light and you're looking for romance, this is definitely it for you. It will 100% satiate your need for a Christmas in August. And we know from these kinds of movies that they're assured of a happy ending at the end. And sometimes that's what you need. Like, sometimes you don't need a blood, guts, and gore ending. This is what you want. You want something that will fulfill the promise of happiness. So please do check out A Snow White Christmas. Light, fluffy, enjoyable, and available to you on Hoopla. Our last two recommendations for this week come from our Canopy service, and the first of those is a very interesting movie. So, if you're in the mood for something thoroughly dark, very, very, very surreal, and a little bit trippy, take a look at the Czech film Alice from the director Jan Svankmajer. I think that's how you say his name. It's an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, of course, but you shouldn't expect any charmingly singing flowers or slightly obnoxiously chanting walruses. This is a really odd movie, but one that I really enjoyed watching. I'd not seen it before this week, but after seeing it, I have to recommend it simply because it left me so curious at the end. It will definitely leave you reeling a little bit because it's just such an off-kilter movie. It's weird and kind of wonderful. So, the cinematography is really striking. It's from 1988, but it's unapologetically kind of dark and gritty feeling. Like, it doesn't feel like a film filmed in the 80s. I don't know. It also has, it's primarily live action, but it's interspersed with these scenes of stop motion animation, which is something I am always going to love. I love stop motion animation. I think it's one of the coolest art forms out there. And when you make it work in the way that they do here, it just elevates so many scenes. I just can't describe how much I loved those moments. So you've got this dark, gritty, surreal, off-kilter version of Alice in Wonderland, and despite it being kind of a departure from what we're used to, I think in ways it taps into the spirit of Lewis Carroll's original stories even better than, say, like, of course, the Disney version or the recent Tim Burton's. It sort of taps into that spirit and just goes with it. And even if it is odd, it's absolutely fantastic. I would strongly recommend it for those of you who are interested in seeing unique filmmaking at work. It's definitely something to see. So 100% check out Alice on Canopy Service. My very last recommendation from Canopy is a quick, fantastic little animated short called Granny Ogrim's Sleeping Beauty. It's only 6 minutes long, so you can absolutely watch it when you need a break from whatever you're working on. But within that 6 minutes, it packs a ton of content. And it's marvelously satirical. It's funny, it's dark, and very entertaining. So it's flash animation style, which I think works really well with this type of short feature and this kind of storyline. And the voiceover performance of Granny Ogrim is really, really wonderful. She's sort of like, I guess, the female version of Vincent Price. I don't know. Once you hear her perform, like, you know exactly what you're gonna get. Something like kind of creepy, but also kind of funny. It was perfect. It was actually even nominated for an Academy Award, which it unfortunately didn't win, but still very, very cool. So if you're in the mood for a quick chuckle, it is your standard Sleeping Beauty story with sort of a bitter, dark comedy twist to it. And it's very, very funny. It's definitely guaranteed to make you laugh. So please do check out Granny Ogrim's Sleeping Beauty on our Canopy service. So that is our set of 6 recs for this week. As I mentioned, we are closing out our summer reading program, so if you still are holding on to some tickets at home, make sure you get those in before the end of the day on Saturday. I believe tomorrow is August the 8th, so before then, please turn those in, and you too could win a fantastic prize. And with no further ado, we are going to close out this week. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. If you've got recommendations for us for what we should be watching, please comment below and let us know what it is. If you have ideas for themes for future, please let me know as well. Without any further ado, we'll say goodbye. Have a good weekend. Bye.